You're back with Radio Chatskill. I'm Tim Bruno. After nearly 11 years in Poughkeepsie, the folks behind Mill House Brewing Company are expanding with The Ridge by Mill House in Highland, New York, a new restaurant, formerly the Gunk House. It's opening on Wednesday. And for her Eating Upstate segment, Erin Shearer got a preview of The Ridge and just ahead of its opening.
Since its opening in 2013, Mill House Brewing has remained a mainstay in Poughkeepsie with its own unique takes on IPAs, Kolsch's, and stouts that have won them numerous awards. This month, they are opening a new restaurant under the Mill House umbrella, The Ridge by Mill House, located at the former German restaurant Gunk House in Highland, Ulster County, and they're the subject of today's Eating Upstate. Head chef Daniel Crocco grew up in Hopewell Junction and graduated from the Culinary Institute of America. At 23, he opened his first restaurant, Brasserie 292 in Poughkeepsie, and has spent most of his adult career owning and operating restaurants. Brewmaster Jamie Bishop brewed as a hobby for many years while living in Brooklyn and working in geriatric sales before making the jump into brewing full-time when Mill House Brewing Company opened in 2013. From the time of its inception, Mill House Brewing won numerous awards for their beers in competitions like the New York Excelsior Governor's Cup. For many years, Bishop and Crocco have discussed opening a second restaurant under the Mill House name, and when they learned that the Gunk House building would be going up for sale, they jumped at the chance. Here's Chef Daniel Crocco talking about making the decision to open a second restaurant.
The natural progression, right, of when you own restaurants is to own another one, right? And we saw an opportunity. We had always talked about maybe doing another Mill House or maybe doing something else, but you learn from other people's mistakes sometimes, and opening up places that are hard to manage, if they're an hour away or 2 hours away, it's quite difficult. We're all, myself and my management team are all quite, if you want to call it, alphas in terms of, the affect that we bring to the table is we're all hard-headed and very opinionated, and we all are quite good at what we do, and that's why we hire people like that. But we kind of noticed that being closer to, I would say our kind of ground zero, right, Mill House Brewing Company at 289 Mill Street, would be easier to manage and keep the quality as high as possible without having to, imagine if we opened up a Mill House Brewing Company in Westchester. It would, it's quite a hike to be able to manage that every day. Especially for me, like I don't sleep much. I worked from 6 a.m. till about 5 at the new place, just doing things, and now I'm here back at 289 at Mill House Brewing Company. So being able to kind of bounce back and forth, and I live quite close, and Jamie lives actually like 5 minutes away from the new place. It makes it pretty easy for us to kind of making sure we're touching the places as many times. I'm always afraid of opening another place because people tend to put a microscope on you at one or the other to make sure like, oh, they opened a second place, but the first place it quote unquote went it went to and I never want that to happen. We've worked too hard for that to happen, and we put together such a great team here that we've been able to kind of focus our attention on getting this thing kind of rehabbed and fixed the way we want it to function for us. So it's quite a blessing, I would say. When you own restaurants in the same restaurant for a lot of years, sometimes it's nice to do something different.
Once Crocco and Bishop secured the building, Crocco set about building their new team. For Crocco, assembling a solid team takes precedence over creating the menu in the initial planning stages.
I've cooked for so long that the food is the easiest part for me. It's putting delicious food on the plate is literally the easiest part. if you talk to any successful restaurant or any successful chef, that is one of the easiest parts. It's putting a team together. It's making sure the place flows correctly. It's making sure you have the guest in mind, the guest experience in mind. It's making sure your staff is in mind and how they work and where they're working and the environment that they're working and the team that you put together and the culture that you build around a business is so much more important to me and honestly the hardest thing to do. The food is the easy part. The food is anyone can make delicious food. We just happen to, as chefs, right, and cooks, we just have more practice at it, right? We cook every day. It's just like anything else. So making delicious food that's why menus for me comes like so far at the end. Not to mention when you build restaurants, they're living being things. The menu I might start out with when we open can be completely different from that in 4 months. We will tailor some things to the guests and how the community receives what we do, and we'll pivot and we'll change. But I'm confident because I've been doing it for long enough that usually the things that I pick and kind of choose to serve people really, they really love, and I'm pretty confident in that. But I'm also not so overly ego-driven that sometimes you have to give the people what they want.
Among the dishes that the Ridge by Millhouse will be serving include swordfish skewer, brown butter squash, chicken and dumplings gnocchi, the Ridge burger, pad thai kale salad, and desserts like ricotta cannoli crepes and peach brown sugar strudel. For those looking for other libations, the Ridge by Millhouse will offer cocktails and concoctions such as their s'mores coffee. The Ridge by Millhouse will also be offering Sunday brunch as well as a raw bar. Further down the road, Crocco plans to construct a new 50-foot bar.
I think that there's always a little bit of worry. We've had 99% amazing feedback from people or press articles about people hearing about what's been going on, right? There's always a couple in there that are like, well, I hope you don't tear the place to the ground and ruin it, and it's just, those are the people that were always just like, if they only knew what we were doing to open a restaurant for a community over there, not to mention some of our loyal patrons over here in Poughkeepsie, if they only knew the amount of hard work and sacrifice, and we're neglecting and putting ourselves through absolute misery, right now to move everything along as quickly as possible. I think that our hopes and dreams for the place are not just what happens right when we open. We have some really exciting ideas for the future, and for someone, like you asked, something that we might not have talked to about with anyone is, I dream to put a 50-foot bar across the front of that deck staring at the mountains, because no one in the area will have something like that. And I think that to me is one of those things that would definitely set, a place that already has an amazing view, way into the stratosphere of the guest experience. So that's a dream, and I'm hoping we can make that a reality in the spring before we open up for the summer season.
The Ridge by Millhouse is located at 387 South Street in Highland. I'm Erin Shear. Eating Upstate is a production of WJFF Radio Catskill.
And that'll do it for this edition of Radio Chatskill.